But when you are working with bigger scales, you have more techniques to apply, more variation. With the propeller on a small aircraft scale model, those usually end up being primed and painted and that's it. And they look dull, and maybe you even do some of those unnatural looking chippings alongside the edges of the blades, but I will rant about those later in this video. I think the propeller is a very significant part because it's right at the front of the model. So it shouldn't look dull, it should be an invitation to the eye, a gentle invitation to the eye to have a look at this beautiful model. And here's one way on how to make the propeller of your small aircraft scale model look more interesting. Let's go. So this is not a guide on how to weather your propeller down to the ground. This is actually, if you're a bit lazy like me and you don't want to spend too much time, you basically want to paint it and still have a good and organic, cool looking result, then this is the way to do it. So after the primer, you lay down a coat of satin black. After it had dried, you lay down another coat over the satin black with a metallic color. Steel, aluminum, silver, something like this. Once this has dried, you pre-sand it a bit with a sanding sponge. I'll let you know more about the sanding sponge that I used later in the video. Now step 3 is for the top color, the color in which your propeller gonna be in the end. In this case, it was anthracite gray. So it's the same procedure, just spray the entire thing with anthracite gray. This is how it looks when the color has dried. I masked it up really nicely to paint the yellow tips. I used RLM04 for this because it dries in a nice, a bit darker tone, like a nice tone of yellow. Basically, this is everything painted how you usually do it, maybe, just without the 2 coats before. Now this is the sanding sponge I was talking about. It's 3000 grit. This is a Tamiya one. You can use any other sanding sponge, but I wouldn't recommend to go below 2000 maybe. Now is the entire trick, in combination with the 2 layers we laid down before, is sanding down the surface. Don't put too much pressure on it, just sand it down gently. This will create that worn look, this realistic type of look. Now here's the finished result after the sanding. And now we're going to use metal, and don't worry, we're not going to use some chippings, these unnatural chippings that I was talking about alongside the edges. No, it's the inside thing. This is a darker tone, the polished metal, and I just want to tone it down to give a little color variation there, so we don't just have the steel, that we have another tone, and darken it down at the edges where we have shadows anyway. So the first step I did after I laid down a gloss coat is using some panel line washes. I used blue-black Ammo Mix PLWs. And now the final step is to lay down the final coat varnish. I use satin for that. I would recommend satin. You can go for flat, of course, but satin, I think, this gives such a beautiful finish. So in the end, it does not just look like painted plastic. When you apply acrylic varnish, lay down a very thin coat, like a mist first, let this dry a bit, and then cover the entire surface with 2 or 3 coats. So after the work is done, every time after the work is done, you need to clean your airbrush. You hear me, boys? Clean your airbrushes. And now we can have a look at the finished result. Again, I told you, this is not about on how to weather it down to the ground. You can use this also as a base. If you now want to do a lot of weathering, this is the perfect base for it. But you can also use this as the finished propeller. And here I have some comparison of older models that I did where I just painted it. I tried to do some chippings and maybe some yellow tips, and this really looks like painted plastic. Unorganic and dull. Oh! Oh. Hey, Gott soll ich noch mich so verschrecken? Hey, nein, Mann. Oh mein Gott, ey, das hast mich mega verschreckt, ey, leck mir. Oh man. I swear to God, I almost had a heart attack. But yeah, I survived. Back to the finished one, back to the one we want, the organic looking one. This is the difference. This does not look like painted plastic. I hope you liked it. See you in the next one. Bye bye.